You better watch out if your enemy's a road ahead of full prophecy to be the greatest beast the world has ever seen. I feed him every day like the bones clean. I feed him all the hate and he grows me, and he gets cause real big, pissed off quick. And if you cross him, you might drop dead. Metaphorically, of course, settling the score, never getting bored. Loves the blood and gold, always wanting more. Feeding from the source, they don't release this until they feel it for the party. And if you start shit, you be heartless in the darkness. Torn apart quick, you left scars ripped, you be chewed up and discarded. And this world ain't right, won't accept it. Negative energy, I expect it. Once it's in your mind, it's infectious. So fight for your life and reject it. You better give me space, I'm protective. My adrenaline spikes when I'm threatened. And if you stay in my way, I'm aggressive. Cause when there's no exit, I'll kill when I'm desperate. There's no exit, I'll kill when I'm desperate.
Okay, this is question number 1. Does the scar give me more gravitas? I'm just saying. Say hello. Hi. She didn't like that. Okay, so let's begin with, I want to go over some stuff that I'm doing. And then from there, we're going to go to a little bit of apologetics. And then we're going to go to Basecamp. And we're going to talk about the stuff that happened this weekend that I can't say in the first 5 to so many minutes, 15 minutes of this show. Okay. This is my review. These are my notes. So, I know everybody's kind of making hay on the Alex O'Connor, Cliff Kaninsky debate. Karen Bertuzzi has a terrible take, and then he did a stupid follow-up video about atheists. Let's not even go there. And Kip Davis also did a really good review on it. So why am I going to do a review? Well, number one, because these reviews are what's popular on my channel. And number two, no one's really talking about the theology. Everyone's just kind of making fun of the other side. So Karen Bertuzzi is making fun of Alex using an old script and Cliff not knowing philosophy, and Kip is attacking Cliff for not knowing history, not knowing anything about Judaism. It was really sad and pathetic, to be honest with you, to hear him try to deny the firmament. That was insane. But so I've already done a few edits, and this is going to be my third or fourth attempt at writing the script. It's just a real mess. I've watched Modern Day Debate, and sometimes the host does a good job, and sometimes he just lets things get out of control. And this is one of those cases where he really needed to direct and reel in, especially he needed to reel in Cliff. I feel Phil also got off topic a few times, but Cliff and Stewart just were not on topic. They just didn't know what they were doing. There's an interview between Cliff and Alex where things go actually really smooth. That was a better debate than what this was. This was just a shit show, to be very blunt about it. So one of the things that I noticed right off the bat is that Cliff doesn't seem to know anything about the Bible. And I was noticing this when I interacted with Big John Steele, which he doesn't know any of the theological issues. He just knows the apologetics. Well, that's like reading a summary or reading notes on somebody's summary or reading a presentation on someone's summary and then acting like you read the book. Like you're just missing so much. Is my aim to improve the quality of apologetics? That's an interesting question, Patrick. So Patrick Barnes. Oh, I'm sorry. Patrick Barnes has asked a question. He's asked, if my goal is to improve the quality of apologetics, if I was so arrogant as to think that the apologists would listen to me, the answer is yes. But as I am not that arrogant, at least not anymore, uh, my goal is more to arm my audience and to warn people about the dangers of bad apologetics. Um, because I want people to know that you can have the truth. You can look at stuff from here and still keep your faith. That all truth is God's truth. All truth is God's truth. And therefore, facts that don't seem to coincide with the Bible shouldn't scare you. You just understand that that's the level of understanding that humankind had when they wrote it, and our understanding has changed. And that's okay. And that's not going to mess you up. That's not going to mess your relationship with God up. Uh, but it does mean you have to recontextualize what you're reading, because if you try to look at it through a modern lens and make it true the way that we understand science and facts and logic now, you're lying and deluding yourself. And then what will happen if you're unprepared for that is that the moment you find out vaccines work, the moment you find out that evolution is real, the moment you find out there's not a firmament in the sky, you've lost your faith if you've been told that what's reported in the Bible matches reality in a physical, ultra literalist sense. And that is so ugly and that is so sad, because the Bible is an incredibly powerful tool and it is an incredibly rich history of the Jewish people. Even if what they understand about their own history is wrong, it's beautiful. And to not accept God because some misguided parent, some misguided pastor told you that dinosaurs weren't real, or told you that you wanting to masturbate was demons convincing you to sin. Um, that's really sad. And I don't want people to lose their faith for reasons like that. I think you should be able to confront facts and science openly, with open eyes, with an open mind, and still be able to keep your faith. And I think creating a false dichotomy, like Big John Steele is doing, uh, damages people's faith in the long run. And then to attack people who are angry at the faith because they have trauma in their life related to people who are in the religion is wrong as well. That's not defending the faith. That's protecting a predator who happens to pretend to be what you are. But they're not you. And you don't know what their motives are. And even if God will forgive this monster of a person and let them go into heaven, that doesn't mean that God doesn't also want to protect and help the person who this jerk victimized. So you can't have it both ways. Either you believe that God forgives infinitely, and that means everybody, or you don't believe the religion. So that's a little mix of theology, philosophy, and history. But that's where I'm at. And on that note, I want to say I slightly misspoke on Big John Steele's video when I went on, because I was trying to say that I consider yeah, he's minimally competent at theology. Like I said, I asked him deeper and deeper levels of questions. I missed one question I wanted to ask him, uh, but the deeper I went, the less he was able to hold his ground. He's just in the very shallow end of apologetics, and he's just learning what's rhetorically uh, effective. He's not learning actual religion, which is going to hurt his faith anyway. Um, but what I was going to say is that I called Kip an internet friend. I think that might have been overstating it. I should say that I sponsor, I pay for the super chats for Kip and for Dan. I support their work, and they have been friendly to me, and they are internet acquaintances of mine. That's what I should have said, but I said they're basically internet friends, because that's what I call, like, people that I don't know in real life, but I interact with, I call them my internet friend. I have very real friends in real life who really take care of me and really look out for me in a really good way. And I don't want to minimize what the word friendship means because of that. But because of my sense of humor and the way that I'm sarcastic almost all the time, to the point that people don't realize I'm being sarcastic, they think I'm being super dry and serious. Um, I call them my internet friend because that's what I call people. Like I would call you, Patrick, my internet friend, even though we've only talked like maybe 2 times on my channel, and then you watched one of mine a long time ago. That's just how I talk. That's just how I speak, and that could have led to a slightly false implication. But I consider Kip Davis an internet friend. I like him, and I support his channel, and I think he's funny, and I enjoy watching his material. So I like the guy. Uh, but yeah, I probably shouldn't have worded it that way when asked by or when confronted on that by Big John when he brought up Dan. Um, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so these are my notes on the debate. Um, don't look for good spelling because I don't have it. I'm dyslexic. The firmament stuff is really bad. The Cliff's understanding of the Galileo scandal was even worse. The shifting of the blame to Catholics was like, what are you doing? Um, but Alex also fumbled, and that did bother me. It's like Alex was running old script that he wouldn't use when debating Destiny or when debating Jordan Peterson, but he was running this much older script from a younger version of himself against Cliff. And while it effectively frustrated Cliff, so good job, it also kind of made it seem like Alex had regressed in his understanding of theology. Let's see, what else? What else did I want to say about this before moving on to the next thing? That's pretty much it. And I don't know if I'm going to do the Q&A section as part of this review or do it as a secondary review. I'm hoping to have this up by Sunday. I know that we're already going to hit Friday, and I haven't finished the script. I have 2 other drafts that I just didn't like. So I'm going back to my original notes, and I'm going to rewrite from my original notes. I'll try to get it out by this week because I know if I wait too long, then no one's going to care about it anyway. Um, but yeah, this is what I've been working on. All right, let's go to the next thing, and then we will go to our first. Oh, by the way, does the biblical God exist? My answer is yes. Even though I'm going to be against Cliff in most of the stuff, I thought Phil did a terrible job. I thought Alex flumbled when he shouldn't have. And I think he just got frustrated with Cliff's inability to understand basic biblical facts and basic biblical consensus, or scholarly consensus. Like, it was just bad. Cliff really did a bad job. He really hurt his reputation because I've seen him do some amazing stuff on those videos with the students when he's debating them. This was bad. This damaged his reputation just a bit, and his son should not be doing this at all. His son doesn't belong in this field. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, let's move on. Bam. We're gonna be doing this video in just a little bit. But where did I want to get to? Oh, before I do that. Hold on, sweetie. Hop off. So, I got some new bearings, but I don't like this. Listen to that. I think I cracked something. I'm not really sure. You hear that? There shouldn't be any noise there. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to buy... I just bought these wheels. But these are older bearings, and I think the bearings might have cracked under the pressure. I think. Like, do you hear that? That's not right, right? Because look, all the rest are nice and smooth. Anyway, this is my 7.5. This is my trick board. If you notice the little wheels, I might change them out for some Spitfires, for some red Spitfires, the old schools, and get some new red bearings. But I rode well today, like extremely well. The other board that I'm loving is, of course, my Baker, and I have some Bones all terrains. These things are awesome. And the other board that I have is my uh, my land yachts, which is great. I don't really like my retrospect. I think I'm gonna get rid of the cheapy one. I'm gonna sell a bunch of stuff for my estate in a few days for some extra cash for a thing that I gotta do. Um, Speaking of which, that's why I'm bringing this up. Next month, there's going to be at least a week where I don't have videos. As you know, me and my wife are filing for divorce, but Texas doesn't have no fault divorce, at least as far as the clerk that I spoke to at the courthouse explained it to me. So I have to do some steps, and so does my wife. And when presented with the steps, my wife goes, "But you've been so nice to me about this whole thing. Maybe we will live together forever." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You just asked for a divorce. We're going through all this process already." I don't know women. I don't pretend to. At this point, it's it's going to be me yelling at atheists in the nursing home, and I'm going to have like a. It's going to be me and what's his name or her name? I don't know. It's going to be some crazy person. Anyway, Baker board is amazing. The bones are amazing. All terrains, get them. If you skate at all, get them. Kip, I expect when we meet to either go skateboarding or for you to show me how to go snowboarding, because I don't know how to snowboard, but I am totally down. I might be in Chicago sometime in the next few months, just FYI. If anybody wants to meet up with me, we can do it. We can probably do that. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. Tequila. I don't know where the divorce even stands because she was expecting me to act like an asshole, and that's not my personality. So now she's like backing off from the divorce, but the process already started. And in Texas, because there's a no fault divorce, there's no such thing as no fault divorce. We have to go through steps. I think one of the steps we have to even do counseling. And since we literally are living in different countries right now, that's really complicated. So, yeah. Me and her have a prenup and a postnup. We both have intellectual property. So we were both very careful when getting married to protect our intellectual properties. So because of that, we're actually in a really good position for no fault divorce, you know. But unfortunately, Texas doesn't just grant divorces like that. But that might be a good thing because who knows, right? Where are we? Okay, so we're gonna have a little bit of fun today. We're gonna do a little bit of Cameron, and possibly, maybe, if we have time. I don't think we're gonna get to it. I want to do a little bit of the beat by Alan Parr because there's real evidence for Noah's Ark, and I kind of want to see what this evidence is. Don't you? Don't you? Okay. Okay. We're gonna go here, and then we're gonna go to Randall Rouser. Where's the Cameron one? There it is. El Cameron Batozzi, Batozzi. Why you do this to me, Batozzi? Why you betray the family like this, Batuzzi? You make us look like fools when you go out and you say stupid things like this, Batuzzi. Batuzzi, you need to come and talk to the Pope. Okay, the Pope wants to have a one-on-one with you and have a little conversation. Okay, Batuzzi? You understand, Batuzzi? You're making the whole family look ridiculous here.
So roughly 13 years ago, my brother became an atheist.
Roughly 14 years ago, I went to go see a movie. Oh, speaking of which, how's it looking? How's it looking? How's it? Is it better? Is it worse? Am I dateable? Ooh, it's got a little pus. Am I dateable? Am I dateable? Am I going to be single forever?
brought up non-denominational evangelical Christians, so this came as
I got a pirate
quite a shock.
mustache and a little goatee thing. I think I'm cool. I'm hip for 1992.
As you might imagine. Now, I actually went through my own period of doubt right after high school, but I got
What's going on? Where's the thing like this?
over it pretty quickly. Like I personally,
What's going on here? Here we go. No, it's not. Why is this in the shot still? That's never in the shot. What's going on?
doubted whether or not Jesus actually existed, but I had those doubts overcome pretty quickly when I learned that Jesus was actually mentioned by non-Christian historians like Josie.
False claim alert. 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 David, come get your friend. So no one actually mentions Christ because the other historians don't know who Christ is. The other historians are mentioning Christians and that they seem to follow a guy named Christ. Cameron, you're better than this. No, you're not. Let's be honest. You're not. But you should be better than this.
Cephas. So after I learned that he became an atheist, I thought I could overcome his doubts pretty easily. But I was wrong. I was very...
Did you become a Christian just to impress your girlfriend who then later became your wife? Is that what happened? Honestly, you tell me. Was this whole thing just to get, and then you married her and now you got into the family, which was preachers. Then you found out that what you pretended to believe wasn't really true. And then you did this whole Bayesian analysis thing. You ended up switching religions thinking that it was going to help you out financially and apologetically, and it didn't. And now you're kind of screwed because you put everything out there and you confess to being a grifter basically on national TV, and now you got to take it all back and you got to show legitimacy, but you're having financial issues because you had set yourself up as a Protestant evangelical pastor. They glommed onto you for some reason because you said all the things they liked, and now you're saying things they don't like, and now you're a Catholic, but you still have all your Protestant homies coming on, and you're putting sometimes bad faith or bad acting Protestants now into Catholic circles. And you're introducing them into Catholic circles, which you probably shouldn't do. Is that literally what happened? Come on, man. Tell me that's not true. Tell you're not an atheist turned Christian because you liked a girl, and then you went too far in a direction you didn't actually believe in. And then when you actually tried to examine what you believe, it turns out, oops. Then you become Catholic because you're like, well, at least I can be intellectually honest. And then you start grifting because you need money. Is that really what happened? Oh my gosh. I took a job because of my wife that I shouldn't have taken. And I made friends there that I loved, but I shouldn't have been there. So, yeah, man.
Very, very wrong. What's up, everyone? Cam here. In this video, I'm telling you the story of how after 10 years of study, I no longer take atheism seriously. Now, I started this video telling you about my brother, and that's all very relevant to where I'm at now. I used to take atheism very, very seriously. But pretty much the only thing I knew about atheism back then was that a lot of really smart, scientists,
even though you were yourself a confessed atheist, you knew nothing about it. That tracks.
were atheists, right? I had heard the name Richard Dawkins, but I didn't know what he actually said about religion. I just knew that really smart people were atheists. But let's return to the story. Okay, after I learned that my brother became an atheist, I decided I was going to meet with him and crush all of his objections. Okay, this ended up being the worst idea that I could have come up with. My brother and I met, and it turned out to be literally one of the worst.
He had never met his brother before. He was very surprised to learn that he had a brother. It was a really weird day, one September. The wind was blowing. He was having a beer. Like, you're my brother. And the other guy was like, who are you, crazy person?
Worst nights of my life.
Do you believe in God? I'm an atheist. Brother, you can't believe that. Dude, I'm not your brother. I don't know who you are. No. You don't understand. We're relatives. Sir, I think you're crazy.
He raised objections to Christianity I had never even dreamt of, but that night showed me that I really had no clue why I believed in Christianity. So after that,
I'm making the joke. You're not supposed to be in a recording from like 8 days ago supporting the dumb joke of the guy streaming. Like, you're not hurting. You're not beating the allegations, my friend.
that night, I started to look into the arguments for and against God's existence. I wanted to know whether or not God's existence was actually reasonable. And after just a few weeks of study,
You wanted to know if you could reason to faith. Something that the Bible and almost every religion that exists says you cannot do. Okay.
quickly learned that there are very powerful arguments for God's existence. I found the Kalam cosmological argument, contingency
Which, according to my friend B.S. Lewis, has been destroyed.
arguments, teleological arguments from fine-tuning.
I don't like the fine-tuning argument. That's not a good argument. I'll give you the Kalam. There's a mathematical argument, by the way, for the existence of God. It's a logical argument. It's symbolic logic. And what's great is that no matter what premise you put, whether it's God exists or God doesn't exist, it becomes sound and valid. It's just a beautiful argument. Yes, I'd love to make you a mod. I don't know how to make anyone a mod, so I can't. But if I knew how to, you know what? It's time for you to learn about religion. You're going to have faith. So you're going to have faith that you have a wrench. So just believe really hard there's a wrench right next to your name and act like there's a wrench right next to your name. And who knows, maybe one day there'll be a wrench right next to your name. Congratulations.
Arguments from consciousness, moral arguments, and so on. Like, there's actually a ton of arguments for the existence of God. Check out this video, got it linked right here, in which we lay out over 150 arguments for God's existence that show up in the literature. Now, this might...
If I ever do watch that, I promise you I'm not an atheist. Speaking of which, I forgot to give the warning. I am a Catholic. I am a Christian. I believe in God. I actually practice my faith. But this is not a Catholic channel. I cuss. I swear. Well, not anymore because monetization won't let me. But I normally cuss and swear. And I say rude jokes. And I have friends who are mostly anti-theist. And they're from my debate days. So we're not nice to each other. But I promise you, we really do like each other. Supposedly. So... Well, yes, I do engage with apologetics. This is an anti-apologetics channel because I think propaganda and lies are BS. And they're the quickest way to lead you down the road to perdition. So you cannot protect the truth with a lie. The truth can stand on its own. Therefore, advertisement, propaganda, and rhetoric have no place in a simple and honest defense of the faith.
It leads you to think that this kind of like settles the matter. Like, don't all of these arguments for God's existence prove that atheism is unreasonable? Well, not so fast. Okay, first of all, every single argument has responses from atheists, and you've kind of got to do the work going through those responses. But secondly, there are also powerful arguments for atheism. Now, the best argument that atheists have, at least that I found, is the problem of evil. The problem of evil is so powerful, in fact, that it's led a lot of people to say, look, okay, sure, you've got arguments for the existence.
I disagree. The problem of evil is not a hard one. The problem of suffering, I think, is way harder than the problem of evil. And I think conflating the power of evil, I think conflating the problem of evil with the problem of suffering is a mistake a lot of apologists do. I can make that face too.
existence of God, but the problem of evil is so powerful that it defeats all of those arguments. But you know what? I should probably like pause the story really quickly and just explain what this argument is, just a little bit more in depth, because somewhat counterintuitively, it actually plays a central role in why I no longer take atheism seriously. So first,
Because it won't make you money, so you stopped, but you still grift on it, so you're still talking about it because you need more views.
First, let me say that this is one of the arguments I've paid the most attention to over the past decade. I've read books, I've watched debates between top scholars, I've listened to lectures, I've watched Joe Schmidt.
So have I. It's amazing how by you saying what your viewers want you to say and what Christians and believers want to hear, you're super popular. But by me stating simple biblical facts and simple scholarly and historical truths, I'm not popular because I'm saying the truth, because that's not what they want to hear. I'm not telling them that they're right. Huh. Interesting. Oh, well.
And so on. So to quickly summarize, the problem of evil is an argument against an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good God. Here's
V.S. Lewis, my joke was that atheism stopped taking Cameron seriously long before this video. Yeah, I know. I was there.
a really common way that it's expressed these days. Premise 1, if God exists, pointless suffering does not exist. Premise 2, pointless suffering exists. Therefore, 3, conclusion, God does not exist.
That is not the problem of evil. That is the problem of suffering, you chingadingy.
Both premises in this argument seem pretty plausible. Like if God did exist,
Pendejo, tú no sabes inglés. Tú es un pendejo más grande. Sí, pendejo. ¿Sabe?
he would probably not permit any pointless suffering. All suffering would have some kind of purpose. The Bible even says that God is working all things toward our good. So premise 1 seems pretty plausible. Premise
Cabrón.
2 also seems pretty plausible. Like just look around a bit and you'll find cases of seemingly pointless suffering. Now, as you might expect, just like
That's the problem of suffering, not the problem of evil.
atheists have responses to the arguments for God's existence, Christians have responses to both premises in the argument from evil. Some Christians argue that God can allow pointless suffering. Others argue that while some suffering might seem pointless on the surface, it still nevertheless has a purpose. But that's not what I'm doing in this video. Like I wasn't convinced that atheism is silly because Christians have responses to these premises. The reason why I don't take atheism seriously any longer is because even if
You know, you keep winking like a tell, like as if what you're saying is bullshit. You know, that's called a tell in body language reading in poker.
we accept the atheist's strongest argument, it still wouldn't prove atheism. And now I'm kind of realizing that I probably should have defined atheism a lot earlier on. Well, philosophically, atheism is the view that there are no gods. It's very simple.
Let's open up a can of worms. Why don't you?
There's no creator, there's no designer of the universe. We weren't created for some purpose by somebody. Theism, on the other hand, is the view that at least one God exists. So atheism has no gods and theism has at least one God. But so why doesn't the problem of evil establish atheism? Well, simply because there are many, many, many other kinds of gods that it doesn't rule out. The British philosopher Philip Goff is a really good example of someone that adopts a sort of non-standard view of God.
So we're in a situation where the believers are tying themselves up in knots trying to explain suffering. The atheists are tying themselves up in knots trying to explain fine-tuning. When in fact, there are middle ground options that can elegantly account for both of these data points. Consider, for example, the hypothesis of a God of limited power. A God who's made the best universe they can. Maybe God simply can't create complex life in an instant. Maybe the only way God can create intelligent life is by creating a universe with the right physics.
Before we go into... Did I just put food right on my lip? Wow. Before we go into Basecamp, after we do the Randall Rousseau response to this one, maybe, just maybe, if he sticks around and doesn't stream hop like he always does, we'll watch a little bit of B.S. Lewis's video destroying the Kalam argument. What do you say, boys and girls? Shall we do it?
That is eventually going to evolve intelligent life.
Thomas, are you here?
I'm sorry, I know it's going to be messy. This is all I can do, is this or nothing. I think this hypothesis can account for both the fine-tuning in terms of God's purposes and the suffering in terms of God's limitations.
So even though God is all good, perfectly benevolent on this view, given his limit in power, there's no way that he can like stop all of the suffering in the world. What I want you to notice here, and this is really important, the problem of evil, which is once again one of the atheists' best arguments, doesn't touch this particular view of God that we just went over. Like it doesn't touch it at all. Think about it like this. Okay, scientists used to believe that the speed of light was infinite. When we discovered evidence that the speed of light was finite instead of infinite,
Hi, Thomas.
conclude that there's like no such thing as light, right? We modified our concept of the speed of light, one of the properties of light. So what I'm saying here is that the best case scenario for the atheist in this argument should really just lead us to revise our view of God. It shouldn't lead us to become atheists. Keep in mind, I'm not saying that the problem of evil is sound or persuasive. Personally, I think there are
No, the problem of evil is how can an all-good, omnipotent God allow evil in the world? If God is all good, he would not allow evil. Because he allows evil, maybe he's not all good. That's the fucking... I just cussed. There went my freaking monetization. That's the problem of evil. The counter argument to the problem of evil is that God brings good out of evil and that good eventually wins. And free will is there because if free will wasn't there, there couldn't be anything. So because you need free will, you have good and then you have the absence of good. So evil is just the absence of good. You recategorize and you show why it's necessary in this life. That's the answer. God is all power and omnipotent, but he also allows people to reject him. And therefore, because he allows that, people can choose to do bad. Why does bad exist? Because people brought it into the world. That's not suffering.
There are many good responses to the problem of evil, like the soul-building theodicy. I'm saying that even if we grant it, hypothetically, if we grant it, it doesn't come anywhere close to even establishing atheism. Something else important I want you to notice is that the same cannot be said of arguments for God's existence. Like if we grant...
Again, evil existing does not negate a God or an ultimate God or an all-powerful God. It either negates the all-powerful God or negates the all-good God. And you have to justify it. Otherwise, you're stuck with an evil God. If you cannot rectify, if you cannot reconcile the realities that we see before us with God's permissive will, then your understanding of God is unorthodox, and that makes you a heretic. Again, not the problem of suffering. I don't have a degree for shit. I thought you have a degree. Why don't you know this? The problem of suffering is if the problem of suffering is that if God can stop suffering, if he's all powerful, why doesn't he stop suffering? It's not attacking the premise. You understand? Problem of evil attacks the premise God is good, omnipotent, not omnipotent. I forgot the word for all good. Benevolent. There we go. Omnibenevolent. The problem of suffering attacks the problem of God's all-powerfulness. They're attacking two different premises. They're not attacking God's existence. You have to knock down all the premises to then go after the existence. You're skipping steps and mislabeling the actual premise you're attacking. B.S. Lewis says the fact that a whole bunch of theology called theodicies exists suggests that the problem of evil is a bigger problem than he's letting on. He's not even, I don't even But yes, even if you're right, he has everything incorrect. So it makes it. It's like I'm trying to talk about calculus, but all I'm bringing up is algebra. That's what he's doing. It doesn't work.
That the arguments go through for God's existence. Then
Why is he famous and not me? I understand why Mike Winger is famous. He's a nice guy. I'm not a nice guy. Me and this guy, we're both douchebags. Why does this guy get to be the douchebag with the money, and I'm here in my bedroom?
would actually prove that at least one God is real. So the move that I'm making here by like hypothetically granting their argument is not available.
Is it because I say douchebag and because I cuss? Look at these pretty eyes. I'm scarred. Don't you want to subscribe to my channel?
the atheist. They can't hypothetically grant the arguments for theism. Instead, they just sort of have to trust that every argument for God's existence fails, even the ones they've never heard of, which is actually kind of a giant leap of faith if you think about it. All right, now just so I'm not misunderstood, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that Christians should think that God is limited in power. I'm not saying that we have to make this move, okay? What I'm saying is that the atheist's best argument.
Why would you assume that? Where are these assumptions coming from? This is why I don't watch his channel. Where are these assumptions coming from? I don't like Brian Halsworth because I don't like his politics. But at least Brian Halsworth uses logic. What is this?
Argument doesn't come close to establishing atheism. Not even close. So even if we grant the atheist's strongest argument, it does not support atheism. The most it would do, again, hypothetically, is cause us to revise our view of God. That's it. And this is a huge reason why.
You mean that you might have to accept that an evil God exists? You don't think that's like a major freaking change in the fucking mind of Christians? Oh, I shouldn't cuss. I really shouldn't cuss. I am so sorry. Dear algorithm, I know. I got the messages, okay? You literally gave me a strike for calling myself a creep sick from a video from 6 years ago. I get it. I'm not supposed to cuss on YouTube anymore. I don't know how I cannot. This is so bad.
I no longer take atheism seriously. I should also mention that this is just one reason why I no longer take atheism seriously. If you'd like to see more reasons, check out my recent.
I know he has a response to the video we're going to watch, but I kind of want to do B.S. Lewis's video after we do Run the Rouser. But let's check it out. Let's just check it out. Let's check it out, man. Let's check out. Let's look at his channel real quick. I haven't looked at his channel in a while. See what he's got. Kamen Batozi. The Batozi stands for. No, I'm not going to do that. He doesn't deserve that. Okay, no, that is his last video. Okay, let's go to Randall. Randall Rouser. The Rousery of Randalls. Okay. Ooh, he's got two videos. He got two videos. I don't see it. Did he do a live? What's going on? Yeah, let's watch Randy.
Yesterday, Cameron Pertuzzi posted a video where he says, after 10 years of study, I can no longer take atheism seriously. And since I've been studying atheism for 30 plus years, I was definitely interested to see what Cameron's argument was.
Randall, I know that when I was first a Catholic on YouTube, and even though I was basically spouting liberation theology, I really took the piss out of you, man. I did not like you. I was not interested in your arguments, and I thought of you as a liberal Christian, even while I was a liberation theologist, just didn't know it. The more I've watched your stuff, the more I like you. I would love for you to come into my channel. I know my channel's way too small for you. I get that. If you want to come on as an avatar and just call yourself, Rick the Steamboat Apologist, whatever, I would love to have you on my channel and talk to you for a little bit and shoot the shit, as it were. I respect you more and more the more I read your stuff. I don't agree with you still. I'm still going to go with Catholic Orthodoxy. I'm still going to go with the Church Fathers, but I I really respect what you're trying to do, and I'd love to speak to you, man. Anyway, continuing on.
The basic claim he puts in the show notes is like this. He says, in this video, I explain why, after studying atheism for over 10 years, I can no longer treat it as a serious hypothesis about reality. So in this video, I want to take a look at his basic reasoning. And
I just want to say this. As someone who studied enough philosophy, I haven't studied Foucault, I want to be very clear, but who studied Hegel and Sartre and Nietzsche. I love Nietzsche. Nietzsche's my boy. I gotta say, man, I gotta say that part of atheism is the farce of reality. It's learning that life is a joke, and it's learning the preciousness of, if nothing matters, then everything matters. If this is the only moment you have, it's the angel thing. Angel, not as in the messengers from God, but as in like the TV show Angel. It's the angel thing where if nothing matters, everything matters, because this is it. This is all you got. This is everything that you are is what you are right now. You're nothing more than that. That's atheism, okay? And that's not, and there's spiritualism and other shit that can be thrown into atheism, but atheism on its own, it's talking about reinforcing the value of life. Read humanism. I'm not a humanist, but I was very tempted to be a humanist a very long time ago in my early days of college, my late days in high school, my early days of college. Look, I get why you don't want to take atheism seriously. I really get why you don't. But to say this is so stupid, and to not understand the comedy of life. If you can't understand that, you can't understand the divine comedy. You can't understand religious humor, let alone how a secularist or an atheist or an anti-theist views the world. Now, an anti-theist is something different. I don't do well with anti-theists most of the time, especially when they have ADHD. I apparently have a problem with that combination of person. But believe me, I'm married to an atheist. My best friend's an atheist. Well, he switches from agnostic to atheist to religious and back and forth. He just keeps going around and around and around. But the point is, I've been dealing with atheists for at least since I was 15 years old. And if your brother's still an atheist, this is kind of jerkish to do on YouTube.
offer a critical response to it. And along the way, we're going to watch 3 short clips from the video. So let's get started. Cameron begins with some basic autobiography about how his brother became an atheist and he tried to convince him of theism, and that initiated a journey for Cameron of studying arguments for and against the existence of God. He notes that, in his view, the strongest argument against the existence of God is the problem of evil. But then comes the big revelation for Cameron, that even if the problem of evil is sustained against an omnipotent and all perfect and all loving God, you can always revise your understanding of God to some degree, such as by surrendering omnipotence and say God is very powerful,
I'm sorry, but he really just looked like a pirate.
but not omnipotent, and thus cannot eliminate all evil, as, for example, Harold Kushner famously argued, and as some process theists argue, for example. He says you can always revise theism in that way so that you could still be a theist, even if the strongest argument for atheism no longer, or does succeed in terms of the problem of evil. So we're going to watch now one short clip where he just kind of then draws the conclusion at 4 minutes and 12 seconds into the video.
The reason why I don't take atheism seriously any longer is because even if we accept the atheist's strongest argument, it still wouldn't prove atheism. And now,
there are a couple huge problems, in my view, straight out of the gate. Cameron, in his analysis, doesn't tell us how he defines taking seriously, and he also doesn't tell us what he means by proof. And as I said, those are pretty glaring lacunae.
I think what he's saying is that he's not going to try to debunk it anymore because it's not relevant to his worldview, to quote Cliff.
or pretty glaring gaps in his analysis. So let's start with this phrase, taking seriously. What does it mean to take
BS. I expect a Christmas gift from you. And you're going to say, well, how do I get your, I don't even know where you live, right? Don't worry about it. Just send me an email and I'll tell you where to send it to, okay? Here's what I want. I want a Bones bearing washer fluid, and it has a little container, and the little bone bearings bearing extractor. And I would like, I'm asking for three things here, and you're just going to have to deal with it. You have to deal with your budget, okay? You have to figure it out on your own, okay? I want the applicator for the grip tape for a skateboard, okay? Altogether, you're looking at a max total of $40, okay? Yeah, I'm not even asking you to break your budget. I know you got a good job, and you're probably some real personality on YouTube that actually has a monetized channel. Everybody has alts and alternate alts. You're probably Cameron Bertuzzi's brother for all I freaking know. Okay, BS, I appreciate that. I was worried I was about to go into a apologetical spiel to get you to buy it, but now that I see that you're already in, we're good to go.
something seriously or not to take it seriously? Well, one way to interpret that is to say one no longer considers that a rational or possibly rational belief to hold. And I think that's how many people would use or
And I
interpret.
want you to just see, I just pulled a Cliff Kaninsky. That's right. I got B.S. Lewis to admit he believes in Santa Claus. By implication, he believes in God. I just want a soul. Soul winning 101 right here. Take that, Cliff.
That phrase. If you say, I don't take flat earthism and anti-vax views seriously, what you'd presumably be saying in a context like that is you don't think those are rationally defensible positions. They're not rationally defensible interpretations of evidence or theories. So is that what Cameron means? Well, second interpretation of taking seriously is that not that it's necessarily irrational, but that a view is simply so far outside of what strikes you as plausible that it's, to use a William James term, it's not a live option of belief for you. For example, a person could say, I don't take panpsychism.
By the way, I have this on fast forward and he's still talking slow. I'm gonna boost it a little bit further forward. Randall, I like you, but man, you really got to speak faster. Just a little bit. Pick up the cadence just a little bit.
Seriously, that's the philosophical view that all matter is in some way conscious. So you could say, I don't take panpsychism seriously. Not that necessarily every panpsychist is irrational or that panpsychism is an irrational position for anybody to hold, but simply that it's one that you just don't find plausible.
I'm gonna get my
Is that
nasal
what Cameron
spray
means
because
when
I'm
he says he
starting to
doesn't
sniffle.
take atheism seriously?
Right
That just
back. Okay, I just had an amazing idea. BS, I hope you're still in the room. Okay. If I'm going to be single again, I need to start dating. And you know what's really popular with the youngins, with the kids, with the cool people, with the Twitchers and the TikTokers and the Xers? Dating game shows. I need to date. What if, and I already have a thing for atheists. What if we do a dating game show where we get all the atheists, the famous atheists, YouTubers, and we do like the lover pass or whatever it is, the fame or love or whatever that stupid game is that they like playing, and we do it, and we do that with me. You know what I mean? It'd be great, and then we could get like other like apologists and other atheists who are like it's the atheist, but like it's all Christian guys, and then it's the Christian, but it's all atheist girls, and vice versa. And we can mix match. We can do things. Think about it. This would be a great show. We could be popular on YouTube again. We could take it back. We could take YouTube back, and we could make it all about the debates again. But now the debates have the added tinge of romance. It'll be huge. Imagine Tovia Singer trying to get one atheist girl to love her fame and to choose love. This is great. We have to do this.
Doesn't seem plausible to him anymore, but it could be rational for others. Here's a third possibility as to what it means to take something seriously or not. It might mean, if you don't take it seriously, that you just think it's too trivial to worry about. It just doesn't come up as a serious matter of consideration. For example, the idea that tomorrow all life on Earth will be annihilated by the impact of a massive meteorite.
Tovia single.
That's something I don't take seriously. In that I don't think it's a serious risk, although it certainly could happen, right? But I don't take it seriously. Is that what he means when he says he doesn't take atheism seriously? Here's the thing. By choosing, I think, clearly an ambiguous descriptor, and I'm going to say this.
By some weird twist of fate, it's me and shaken fist going out on a date.
Cameron, yeah, he's been studying this stuff for 10 years. He should know that precise language matters, and that if you use ambiguous language, that is a way of guarding your analysis from critical rebuttal, because people don't even know at the outset what you are claiming. I can't help but wonder if Cameron's use of not taking seriously, is that just a form of clickbait? Is that a way to be ambiguous intentionally about guarding his claims from rebuttal?
Oh, it's definitely clickbait, man. It's definitely clickbait. Come on. You know that. He plays the game. I don't play the game. You don't. You kind of sometimes play the game. But he plays the game, man. Come on. Don't be naive.
Or is that just a carelessness of analysis?
If you want to call it intellectual dishonesty, I mean, whatever, or bad faith. But no, he plays the game. He's in it. He's in it to win it. He's in it for the money. Yeah.
I'm not sure what is going on here. But I will say that if he had said at the outset, for example, he no longer considers atheism to be a rationally defensible position, and if that was his central thesis, then the conversation quickly could shift to a discussion as to how to define rationality and whether Cameron's claim itself was defensible based upon
If
credible
only there were some kind of rationality rules that we could reference.
definitions of rationality. But by choosing ambiguous phrasing, don't take seriously, where it's not even clear what he's claiming, he's now really, in a sense, indemnified his claims from
I'm
immediate
44. I'm allowed to make bad dad jokes, okay?
rebuttal because we don't know what he is claiming. Similar problems when it comes to proof. He says that, again, he no longer takes it seriously. He says it wouldn't prove atheism. Even the strongest argument wouldn't prove atheism. So what does he mean by proof? Does he mean it wouldn't provide a logical proof for atheism, which would be a valid deductive argument with logically compelling premises? If that's what he's requiring of the atheist, of course, the immediate rebuttal is, do you have a proof for theism? Do you have a logically compelling deductive argument whose premises can only be denied on pain of contradiction and irrationality? For
What a good Christian, Randall.
theism? And if not, why are you holding the atheist to the standard that you don't apply to yourself? A lesser form of proof, there are actually 5 lesser forms of proof in criminal law. There is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So is this what Cameron is meaning, that the problem of evil wouldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that atheism is true? And if so, why would he expect that high standard of atheism? And does he have proof beyond a reasonable doubt for Christian theism? Again, I would wonder, why doesn't Cameron clarify this? Then there's a lesser proof. It is proof by clear and convincing evidence. There's still a lesser proof, which is proof beyond or by a preponderance of the evidence that is more likely than not. Each one of those three lesser forms of proof could be sufficient to warrant belief. But criminal law also has two lesser forms of proof still, which are not sufficient to warrant belief, but are sufficient to warrant further inquiry and study. And as a result, would be sufficient to warrant taking something serious.
Randall, I'm sorry, buddy, but you're getting boring. Let's go check out your next video.
So Cameron Pertuzzi responded on Twitter to my critique of his new video saying that atheism is not a serious position. And we ended up having a back and forth on Twitter, and I was going to offer a final reply to him, but I thought rather than leave it for the hinterland of Twitter, I would just make another short follow-up video recounting our exchange on Twitter and then explaining where I was disagreeing with his analysis on a specific.
Why let it stay on a platform that your audience doesn't watch because they're in Blue Sky? Instead, make some money on a monetizable channel.
Point. So why don't we begin by recapping that exchange? So Cameron begins, he says, Mr. Tentative can't deny the obvious point that the main arguments for atheism aren't arguments for atheism. They can just as well be used by non-traditional theists to justify their brand of theism. So I guess his claim here is that arguments for atheism actually, like the problem of evil, don't show that God doesn't exist. It only shows that a particular concept of God exists. Which, yeah, like I don't find that to be particularly illuminating. I think that's rather obvious, which is what I then said. I said, I agree. The point that atheism is always a denial of a specific concept of theism is rather obvious. So in other words, yeah, the problem of evil is always directed at a particular concept of God, or any other atheist argument is going to be directed at a particular concept of God, just like an argument for God's existence is going to be arguing for the existence of a particular being or concept. But then this is where
I like Randall, but he's so catty.
It's interesting. So then Cameron says that I'm incorrect. He says that atheism means there are no gods.
This is so high school drama.
So what he's trying to argue is that the
junior drama, you know what I mean?
Atheist is overreaching because they affirm
He said he doesn't like my God. He said he doesn't like my theology. He said he wants to be friends with the burnout kids who are atheists. Ew, we can't be friends with them. Our parents would get mad.
Let's say they justify atheism based on the problem of evil. But the problem of evil only justifies atheism. It only justifies belief in a particular subset of beings that may be called God. And so it actually doesn't justify atheism. It only justifies disbelief in a morally perfect, all-powerful being, for example. That's the nature of the artist, what he's trying to argue. But again, I don't find that, I think actually he's mistaken there in the way that he's framing it, or at least there's a confusion in the way that he's presenting things. So I said, Cameron, you're just wrong. Not every atheist, or every person who calls themselves an atheist, means to deny the existence of every entity affirmed by every person who identifies as a theist. In other words, when a person says, I'm an atheist, they're not necessarily saying the entity that every person refers to as God who identifies as a theist.
I gotta stop wearing the headphones. I gotta go back to the earbuds.
Does not exist. That may not be clear, so hold that thought. I'll explain it in a moment. But first I want to come to his final response. His final response is to say he's going to now explain why I'm so wrong about
I like how Randall's still back in the day of the single tethered headphone.
this. And then he quotes Graham Oppy. So it's nice that even though he doesn't take Oppy's atheism seriously, he at least takes Oppy's definition of atheism seriously. Here's what Oppy says, quote, theism is the view that there is at least one God, and atheism is the view that there are no gods. And so Cameron then can conclude that atheism is overreaching because the person says there are no gods, and yet their argument for atheism only justifies disbelief in some gods at best, right? They have the argument from the problem of evil that only justifies disbelief in the existence of a morally perfect, omnipotent being, for example, but there are other conceptions of God out there. So
see, Randall Rousseau understands which premise is being attacked with the problem of evil. Cameron, why don't you?
You can't defeat theism, and thus atheism as such overreaches. My response to that, again, has been when people say they are an atheist, they are denying a specific concept or conceptual range of notions about the divine or ways that the term God has been used. They're denying a subset of those, but not necessarily all of them. Cameron assumes I'm wrong on that, but no, actually, I'm clearly right.
This thing?
Let me give you an example.
I can do that thing.
So a person comes along and says,
it doesn't work.
I'm a theist. And so you ask, well, what do you mean when you say God exists? And they say, well, I believe that the university is fully actualized and that is God.
Yeah, I'm not cool
something like
enough
that.
To do that.
That is actually a way that the term God has been used. I'm not making stuff up here or pulling stuff out of thin air. There are many people who have equated God with a sort of pantheistic conception, right? That the universe just is God. The atheist, person who identifies as an atheist, is not thereby committed to saying the universe as such does not exist. What they would be committed to is saying that, in their view, is a misapplication of the term God. The universe ought not to be understood to be God. But they're not committed to denying the existence of the universe. They're not beholden to that. Or another example, Paul Tillich, right, one of the most famous quote-unquote theists of the last century, defined God as the ground of all being. Not a being, but the ground of being. Many other people question whether that is anything at all. And so, again, a self-identified atheist is not necessarily committed to denying the ground of being. They may just say, yeah, I just don't think that's God. I think that's just existence.
It always autocorrects. I think that's such BS. No offense, BS. Where is this video of yours? Is it this one? Okay, let's see.
Hello? My name is B.S. Lewis. I'm an atheist, and I don't believe
the Jewish doctrine of creation out of nothing.
The Kalam cosmological argument.
The Kalam cosmological argument.
The Kalam cosmological argument.
Now, I was speaking of the Kalam cosmological argument.
is an argument that goes back to the 11th century Muslim scholar Al-Ghazali. He formulated it as evidence, because we all know arguments are evidence, for the very truthful truthiness of the God of Islam.
I believe in the Big Bang.
I just know who banged it. Fast forward to the 1970s when a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed William Lane Craig decided to steal from the Muslims' worldview and popularize this argument for modern-day Christianity.
Because of the historic roots in medieval Islamic theology, I christened the argument the Kalam cosmological argument.
Now, while both groups disagree which one is actually really serving the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they can both agree that a beginning needs a beginner. But that's actually great news, because according to Wikipedia, that narrows our choices down to 183 creator gods. Well, and the most generic, vaguest form of general deism, and the possibility of an unknown god.
No, because there's very few creator gods that are outside of creations. You need a creator god that's outside of creation. That might limit it down to a little bit less than 183, I think you said, but all right.
And I guess multiple of these gods working together in polytheistic union. Or perhaps even some atheist named Zach running the universe in his basement as a simulation.
What joking, right?
But I digress.
You fucking joking me.
How about we take a look at the structure of the Kalam cosmological argument and see how we can get apologists to ditch one of the most popular tools in their arsenal by merely switching out one premise.
Well, if you switch out even just one premise, it's no longer the same argument.
The cosmological argument. It goes like this. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore, the universe has a cause. Is the first premise true? Let's consider.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Begin and cause are synonyms, so it's basically a tautology. But here's a fun fact. The earliest forms
BS, do you really know the word tautology? Be honest. Did you have to look it up?
of the cosmological argument didn't contain the phrasing begins to exist. It was just everything that exists has a cause. Which understandably caused some problems for the group that was using this argument to demonstrate that their God exists.
No, that's why William Lane Craig changed it.
But what about our second premise? Did the universe begin, or has it always existed? Atheists have typically said that the universe has been here forever. The universe is just there, and that's all. First, let's consider the second law of thermodynamics. It tells us the universe is slowly running out of usable energy, and that's the point.
Wait. Why are we jumping ahead to the second law of thermodynamics?
Everything that has an end must have a beginning. These are simple phrases. So that's what's being argued there in that argument. What BS is missing, mind you, we haven't finished the video, but I'm assuming he's not going to tackle this, is that there might not be a beginning. Or if there is a beginning, the Big Bang as the beginning is a beginning of creation, but there's time before the Big Bang, which if we're arguing that creation is before time, that means that creation has to go back before the energies or the laws that create time exist.
thermodynamics. I thought the second law was contingent upon the presuppositions laid out by the first law of thermodynamics. Oh yeah, that's why. Because energy and matter not being able to be created sure sounds a lot like energy and matter not beginning to exist. So let's go ahead and switch out the second premise of the Kalam with the first law of thermodynamics, just to see what happens. Premise 1. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. I hope we're all in agreement here just because of the definitions of begin and cause. Premise 2. Energy and matter did not begin to exist. This seems like a good time to remind you viewers that my comment section is always open for Christian coping and seething and reminding me that I'm going to hell. Oh yeah, and also...
BS. BS. Hey, BS. You might not go to hell. Sorry. There's a chance you're not going to hell. So sorry to disappoint you.
So don't forget to smash that like button. So to wrap it up, here's our conclusion. Therefore, matter and energy did not have a cause. Boo-hoo theists. Have fun trying to disprove the first law of thermodynamics. Because if by some...
Dude, you came to the right channel. Okay? Don't close.
chance you get the Nobel Prize for being able to do that, you're just going to undermine the second law of thermodynamics, making Bill Craig's second premise pointless and obsolete. So in conclusion, if you think the Kalam cosmological argument is anywhere near good, you should probably begin to exist as an atheist. And hopefully my channel was the cause.
It was okay. It wasn't the best, but it was okay. All right, let's get on to Basecamp. The problem with BS's video is not that it's not that it doesn't point out a good inconsistency in the argument. It's that you have to change the premises to get to the argument. BS needs to tighten that up and find a way through the premises to show the opposite true. Like I said, there's a much more interesting equation for God that both proves and disproves God. So if we're going to say creation never exists, or creation never came into being, but we're saying that everything that was created had a beginning because it has an end. So you could say the universe has a creation, but then it becomes, well, what about the laws and all of that? That was never created. And then you're just kind of getting into philosophy, which I don't mind. I like philosophy. But I think he did a good job. It was a good video. Not the best video of all time, but I think it was a really good video. BS. Good video. Oh, I forgot to give it a thumbs up. I'm so sorry, BS. I'm so sorry. Hold on. Hold on.
Hello? My name is B.S. Lewis. I'm an atheist, and I don't believe
the Jewish doctrine of creation out of nothing.
I think it's actually one of your better videos, BS, simply because you didn't have to be overly bombastic or antagonistic to get your point across, which I think shows maturity. But again, you need to find a way to falsify Craig's argument without changing the premise.
Gender-based, although she does think that everyone has a disgusting body. She mentions that at one point, but that is not like round shortly. Hello, Simone! Today we are going to be doing a deep dive on what some have called the femcell shooter because of a incorrect and forged manifesto that was shared around shortly afterwards.
What?
Where she looked like she subscribed to femcel ideology, but if you dig deeper, it was pretty obvious that it was forged. Like if you actually go into it, and the real manifesto.
So the one that they're calling the real manifesto, I also read. So I read the quote unquote real one, but I don't know how real that one is. So just take everything, all the facts are about to say with a grain of salt.
So I was able to find it after a lot of research.
Oh, so there is a manifesto. It's just that the wrong manifesto was shared first.
Yes, because she idiotically forgot to make her document public before going on the mass shooting.
Oh, that's like when you accidentally forward an email to the wrong person, you know?
Her boyfriend had to make it public, which I think really blows the idea of her being a femcell out of the water. And as we go through, because we'll go through a few of the longer snippets from her manifesto, it'll be pretty clear that she is probably closest to a 4chan.
Is he not wearing glasses that actually have glasses? Is he wearing fake glasses and she's wearing real ones? Is that what's happening right now?
In ideology,
no,
like
no,
a stereotypical
there's
4chaner,
class,
very
okay.
black-pilled. And I would say that this shooting was downstream of an extreme blackpilling of the youth who just don't believe there's hope in anything, or that the older generation understands them or has any sort of plan.
But what if the first rule of thermodynamics is wrong, Thomas? What if it's all a lie, Thomas?
For them or any good advice for them. And yeah, I agree with that across the board in terms of I think that we are at risk.
Is it called a theology? I don't know if that's the right word right now, but I have a theology that actually embraces the fact that matter can't be destroyed as evidence for what happens after the universe is destroyed. I think this was like year 2 or year 3 of me and BS interacting that we went over that.
Of many more such shootings like this if we allow this rampant nihilism to continue to spread. And it is being pushed by the newest update of the urban monoculture, not the update from a couple generations ago, not the one that has affected most adults, but the new one sort of follows the nothing strategy from Neverending Story.
People have begun to lose their hopes, and for it's like a dispute.
With this, what do you oppressive feeling of depression and nihilism? What is that?
The gist is that those without hope are easy to control.
Okay. Well, and that's checks out. That seems to be what's going on. Okay.
When you get rid of human creativity and human ingenuity and hope for a better future, even though I've like literally never, I actually sat down with Simone and was like, we may live to a post-work era. Yeah. Like when we are old, it might be that only work is happening voluntarily, which is pretty wild to think about.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of reasons.
Thomas, just FYI, I have a theory that basically states that the first law of thermodynamics, although I don't word it this way when I say my theory, the fact that matter cannot be destroyed or created is evidence of God, because everything is made of God, because God had to make something. He had to make everything. So how did he make it? How did he bring it into existence? He brought it into existence of himself. I don't know if that's a heresy or not. That's why I don't go around preaching it, but that's a theory that I've been heavily interested in for a very, very long time. And if you believe in the energies and essences distinction of Orthodox theology, it actually fits in perfectly with Greek Orthodox and Russian Orthodox understanding of who God is and how a soul develops. Just to let you know.
Reason to be optimistic about the future. But I wouldn't have been optimistic about her place in it because she seemed exceedingly stupid. And we'll go into that as well.
Wow. Okay. Fighting words.
Okay. Not really. When you read it, you're like,
really?
Okay,
yeah, I know nothing about this. So yeah, please bring me up to speed.
Okay, great. And the thing that will surprise people, just first, I'll put some pictures on screen here of her, is she is white. And for a 15-year-old girl, it looks like she would have grown up to be a fairly attractive woman.
She's going through her awkward teenage phase at this point.
No, I'm not. I'd say probably top 10% attractiveness in terms
so
of
she was,
women.
okay, so yeah, she wasn't deformed. She wasn't, and she had a boyfriend. Like,
so he has a type.
So she wasn't.
She was.
It's kind of edgy that he's talking about. Anyway, well, he's going to acknowledge the edginess here anyway.
Thin. She had a decent looking face. And again, this is all in the context of I am trying to judge a 15-year-old's future attractiveness, not me talking about how attractive she was.
I think you're also trying to point out, like, is this because she was incredibly ugly in some way that would lead her to be bullied and extra blackpilled by the world because she wasn't attractive? But that clearly wasn't the issue.
Yeah, that clearly
was a technical issue with her appearance in a way that could have radicalized her. It had to have been.
She could have smelled.
Something else is what you're saying.
She comes off, and you'll see this as I go through this, if you're familiar with the story of Creepy Chan, pretty similar to Creepy Chan.
Oh, okay.
She could have just had a shitty personality.
Or early Bella Delphine, if you're familiar with her story.
Okay.
Where she was basically raised in environments like 4chan.
Wow.
And tried to customize her appearance and humor and attitude to be like that people on those sites respect. Okay, so The attack took place on December 16, 2024, a tragic shooting occurred at the Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin. The shooter has been identified as Natalie Rapinoe, a 15-year-old female student who also went by the name Samantha or Sam, you see in some of the correspondence.
Update for my audience. I requested a manual review of the video that they claimed hate speech on, and after watching it, they agreed that it wasn't hate speech. I called myself a creep, and that's what I got struck with, so. Oh, thank you, Patrick. I'm glad you agree. He says, creation is an energy of God. Yes.
Here is what we know about the incident and the shooter. The attack took place during a study hall session, resulting in the deaths of 2 people, a teacher and another teenage student. 6 others were injured.
Just FYI, that might make us both heretics. Just putting it out there, but I'm glad we agree.
Was 2 in critical condition. Rapinoe died from what the authorities believe to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The gun used was a 9.
At least according to some Catholic apologists, not necessarily according to the church, but at least according to some Catholic apologists, we might have just labeled ourselves heretics.
Millimeter handgun. Her parents, Melissa and Jeff Rapinoe, had been divorced and remarried multiple times. She mentions this in her manifesto.
Luckily, they don't speak for the church or the magisterium.
They had a joint custody arrangements that sometimes required Natalie to move between homes every few days. Enroll Natalie in therapy.
Every few days? That sounds terrible.
To help her cope with the custody arrangements. And Natalie had joined a shooting range with her father in the months before the incident. And a photo from August.
Yeah, she called him a sucker, a useful sucker.
Showed her at the firing range wearing protective gear and handling a firearm. Her father was quite proud of this, and he believed that she enjoyed her time there. She also participated in karate competitions. Now, she was intensely obsessed with school shooters, and in her manifesto talks about a number she considers herself a fangirl of, so we'll get to that.
Oh, wow, okay. Normally, martial arts and participating in safe firearm use at a gun range is correlated with more responsible gun use behavior. So this was surprising.
Yeah. Well, no, it's clear that she went into all of this with the intention of doing a school shooting.
Like she wasn't raised with it. It kind of was something she
taught her dad
into. Okay, so it's not like her dad raised her going to gun ranges. Like, this is gun safety. Yeah. We're a gun family. It was more like, hey, Dad, I really want to go to the gun range together. It'll help us bond. Wouldn't you like me to like you more than my mom, etc. Something like that.
Yeah, and we'll see later in this, her argument for why she did this could basically be boiled down to, I decided that my life had no hope and the future has no hope, so I decided to commit suicide, but wouldn't that be a lame way to die? Why don't I remove some other weak genes from the gene pool in the process and remove some of the filth that is humanity from the planet of the Earth?
Oh, come on. All right.
So she sort of was an antinatalist, you could almost argue, but like an incel black pill version of an antinatalist.
Yeah, the antinatalist view is, let's just all end the line. It ends with us.
Well,
but
keep in mind, she also believed, quote unquote, she had written this, that she was the mistake they never wanted of her parents. And speaking of both school and home, they look at me but don't see me. I am invisible until I do something they can't ignore. And I'll just go straight for the document. I think that's a better way to do it.
I kind of want to hear Jordan Peterson analyze this. I know a lot of my audience doesn't like Jordan Peterson, but I love Jordan Peterson, and I'd love to hear his analysis of this manifesto.
But before I go into the document, I also wanted to talk a bit about how this document was found. And, I'll just put the tweets on screen here. But yeah, there's a series of tweets about the fake femcel version of the manifesto that was going around. And that is what actually motivated the release of the real document. The boyfriend was not going to release it at start, but people were basically like, look, people are using this to spread like an ideology that wasn't hers, using her death. Like either release the real document or this fake document's going to gain more traction. I will note some interesting things about going through the entire manifesto, because it was like 4 or 5 pages, is that it doesn't really talk about sexual frustration. It doesn't really talk about anything about being a woman or anything like that as being a bad thing. So it doesn't appear to be particularly gender-based. Although she does think that everyone has a disgusting body. She mentions that at one point. But that is not like I'm angry at men sort of thing. She doesn't mention politics at all in the document. So this wasn't anything that was particularly politically motivated. She doesn't mention anything that seems stereotypically woke. She seems to have been fairly allergic to that. And
By the way, I have more people active in my chat than my view counts as I have in my show. I don't understand why the algorithm is against me. I just don't get it.
A lot of it is basically self-pitying, I guess I'd say.
She's a teenage girl. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I'll start
watching these guys and talking about this topic probably doesn't help, but whatever.
Quoting here. Maybe you'll see me as a weirdo, a freak, just as some of you do now, but I'm not. I'm not like the others. I would never want to be like them.
We'll always be freaks and we'll never be like other people.
You're boring. And you're totally ordinary. And you know it.
With how they think and what they do on a simple day, I hate how the population thinks, grows, and talks about how they make romance fake. If only some days we could do a public execution, that would be gladly needed. I wouldn't mind throwing some stones at idiots or even watching from the far back when they get hanged. And then, so you get a lot of stuff like this, like very violent sort of 4chan-y, but also very self-pitying and very desiring to be unique. I am not like other people is a constant theme of this, which we've seen. There's like teenage girls go through.
This is a classic teenage girl, tendency.
They could have maybe been cured had she seen American Beauty.
There's nothing worse in life than being ordinary.
Yeah, she's just like, oh, this is too basic. I can't do that.
But
yeah,
there hasn't been a movie.
It was painful hearing that because parts of it sounded like my teenage diaries, my angsty days. And
We have those somewhere, right? We should like read them at some point on the show.
Maybe not.
But they are very fun to read.
Angsty. Well, especially when I was a teen, they were incredibly angsty. And reading this takes me back. I mean, part of me is thinking it's a wonder more girls don't do school shootings, because in the end, like, they're scary. People are afraid of teen boys in school shootings. It's the girls who are scary. That's why we originally decided to have boys first, because I was terrified of having 2 teen girls leading the tone in our family.
No,
and we were able to
I will note here, girls almost never commit mass shootings. This is very rare.
Yeah, this is extremely low.
There have been more mass shootings by trans women in the last 4 years, I think, than there have been by women in the last 20 years.
That makes sense. She's bringing DEI to school shootings. She's shooting the glass ceiling, as it were. But I'm thinking also about the Salem witch trials. This was an incredibly violent series of events that was driven by
very, very, very good point.
Getting a little bit when she's like, I would like to throw a rock at them. I would like to watch as they, get executed. She could be in Salem.
Right, so you're not an American and you don't know what she's referring to. Describe the Salem witch trials quickly.
So the Salem witch trials took place in the town of Salem, Massachusetts, when a bunch of pilgrims sort of had a mass hysteria event led by a small clique of female teenage girls who started accusing various members of the town of witchcraft. There was a slave involved who kind of got coerced into feeding into the narrative as well. I think she might have been the first adult to kind of feed into this witchcraft narrative and accusing people of practicing witchcraft. But in the end, a sizable number of people were killed. One very innocent man was crushed to death in a pretty ballsy way. He basically just, whenever they asked him to confess his sins, he would just say, more weight. And it was one of these instances of teenage females being incredibly violent and evil and Machiavellian and uncaring and psychopathic. And so this doesn't seem too far from that. And I think, having been a teenage female, I get that they're scary. They're scarier than teenage boys by a long shot.
When they decide to go scary. By the way, a movie I note, if you want to watch a movie about teen girls being crazy, that I think is really good and hugely underrated, Ginger Snaps 2.
Ginger Snaps 2
2. Amazing movie. Hugely underplayed as a cult classic.
But see, that's crazy in a fun way. And I think what would have been more helpful in terms of
Heather's also is crazy in a fun way.
Making the concept of being a school shooter and suicidal school shooter too cringe for this young lady would have been something like The Virgin Suicides or American Beauty, like you pointed out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there hasn't been a movie like that in a really long time.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Too long since we have made it cringe to be a young teenage girl desiring to be.
It's a public service, clearly. We got to get back to this. Make it too basic. Yeah.
Okay, so here is a quote from it that I think will throw off the idea that this might have been an overly left-leaning person. So here, obviously, I'm not going to say the N-word, but she uses the N-word.
Oh, boy. Oh.
And then she says, but it's only in one section, like one paragraph she mentions this, and it's a complete non sequitur from where it is in the document.
Is she just doing it to be edgy? Is she just trying to make it clear that she's not
being edgy? I suppose some of the other shooters she admired did it, and then she decided she was really trying to simp for male mass school shooters. This is clearly part of this for her.
I think fangirling is another bad symptom, or just uncomfortable symptom of being a teenage female. This is just one of those perfect storms of every way in which teenage femalehood was manifested in her was manifested in exactly the wrong flavor.
Yes. So she says, in words, though worse, once you sleep with them, you are one. I don't care who you think you are or what you think you've done good for this world of yours. It will never matter because you will always have no thought and no brain to continue with. I hate looking at some of the people in society and seeing what they are and what they do with their lives. Like, how does one do that? But I know how, out of scum and just pure retardedness. So you can see it's very meandering and doesn't really have a point. It's almost like somebody trained in AI on 4chan.
Yeah.
To go further here, I'm glad to be different and not the same as other people. I know how to be formal. I know how to use my words. Even if I get mad at you, there has always been a good reason, whether or not I despise you or just because I can. There's always been a good reason. Either I despise you or just because I can. I don't know if that's a good reason, just because I can.
Again, this is so teenage girl writing.
Some of you guys, very teenage girl. It's teenage girl distilled. Some of you guys really do deserve the execution punishment, rather painful or not. You deserve to be dead, but yet doesn't the whole world deserve that? The main target has been anyone with some sort of feeling or being or knowing any action to turn you wrong and left rather than the right and the better. So that might be saying that she's right-wing there. I can't really make it out. This is what she had to say after praising a number of other mass shooters about the Columbine mass shooters. She goes, I've looked into him since 2021 and 2022, and she has a picture of him. And I've just realized how much potential bombs have. But it's not just that, though. It's his strategy, his own method, and what led him to do it. And
if you want to watch it truly, you have to be someone my age for it to be as haunting as it is. But if you want to watch something truly haunting, watch Skin's video on the Columbine shooting. It's a music video. And man, they get everything down to the last. It is haunting. It is a really good video. It's a really good song, but wow, like it took me back to the 1990s, and like I was like, ooh, that was uncomfortable.
Fact that he stuck to that. Some of his fangirls are like really strange in my opinion, but like aren't all fangirls? So she's like questioning being in this fangirl community for school shooters. And then she goes on to say, there are also others I admire, or so I'd like to say look up to, and or find interesting otherwise. Most are just interesting to me. Unlike those retarded FAG fucks who simp over them. Like, come on, just stop. So you can see
This just sounds like a teenage girl's diary, and gosh. Yeah, go on.
No, but we live in a society. We had a teen girl who we were helping at one point, and she would say stuff that sounded sort of like this sometimes. Not like this, but like very like, I'm different, no one's like me. And I'm like, everybody thinks that. The number one thing you need to remember when you're a teenager is be nice to your parents. That's like, say, the number one thing I'd impart to teenagers, because that's going to be the strongest instinct that you need to overcome to learn to intergenerationally strive. Because
what's also just so interesting is it's hard for me to model. Like, I have never seen this trope come through in a teenage girl or boy who is from a large family. They just, there's something that having a lot of siblings and having a life in which by design you are presented with responsibilities and limitations and hardship, but in a meaningful way. And by meaningful, I mean, it's because there's something else.
I'm an only child, so I don't know. I had a sister, but she passed away when I was a kid, so I have no idea.
Matters more instead of just, oh, this random bad thing happened.
And my mom died when I was 6, so like it was just me and my dad for most of my life. So.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. Not a single school shooter I'm aware of has been from a large family.
Yeah, has had more than one sibling, from my understanding. Maybe
that's wild, actually.
Well, we have to look up that claim, of course, and actually check.
Okay, so I went through a lot of AIs trying to find if any could find a single school shooter from an intact family with more than one sibling. I'm even talking just 2 siblings. Could not find a single one. Now, some had parents who had remarried or married other people and had a number of half siblings, but here I'm looking for large intact families.
Patrick says, Columbine really bothered me when it was made about gun control rather than mental health. I think many subsequent shootings could have been prevented if it had been handled differently. Well, so I was part of a goth group when that happened. I had muscles at that time that were bigger than my head. So I wasn't one of the ones who was kicked out of school that day. But my entire friend group, everybody who I sat with, was kicked out of school for the next 2 days, like the day of and the day after, because people were so scared. And then it became all about, I can't say what the word is, but basically they were all going to jump, all the goth kids. And then that turned into like a weird class warfare thing. And there was a fight at the school that involved all the preps and all the poor kids. And apparently, and as far as I understand, and I've heard this from multiple people from all over the United States, this happened everywhere, where the tension boiled over and there was like some kind of off-school fight between the preps and the goths, or the preps and the gangsters or the cholos. And that it got ugly because of the tension caused by the Columbine massacre. So, yeah. It was a weird time, and then came Woodstock '99, and everything went to shit. So yeah, there was a lot of tension, and everybody kind of thought the world was going to end in 1999, especially because of documentaries on Nostradamus. So and then just the atmosphere of Millennia and X-Files and Dark World and a bunch of other stuff that had to do, and even in wrestling and NWO, like you had like this pressure of like, oh, something's going to happen, and then nothing happened. Even with Y2K, nothing happened. And then just a year later, something did happen, and then we're like, oh. But on the lead up to it, it was like a great disappointment, kind of like when everybody thought like, when the evangelicals thought there was going to be a rapture, it was like the great disappointment before like computers shutting down and apocalypse happening. So yeah.
Seems to have 100% protection rate.
1,000 years of war. And it didn't happen.
Against somebody going crazy and becoming a school shooter, which is just wild. And, you know, the next time somebody's like, hey, we need to stop these school shootings, we should ban guns, you can be like, or start having lots of kids again. That would also stop it.
Maybe we're in the 1,000 years of war. Maybe it's happening right now. Who knows? Ooh, scary.
But yeah, I just, even when it comes to general angstiness, sullenness, now, of course, even in Hannah's Children, the amazing book on like very big prenatalist families, there were some
But
families
a lot of
that-
people mislabeled Y2K with the prophecy of the. So on New Year's of 1998, people thought the world was going to end as 1999 began, and it didn't. And then when 1999 ended, people were talking about Y2K, which was a different thing about computers not working. People forget about the earlier idea, caused mostly by literature and fiction and movies, that they thought there was going to be like this great uprising, some kind of apocalypse event, and then we were all going to live in like Mad Max world. And it just didn't happen.
reported having depressed teens who were struggling a little bit, but not in an angsty, weird way like this.
You pointed out to me, I thought it was really interesting, is there was a case called the Wolf Children of 5 kids that were raised in a cramped Manhattan apartment, like a small studio apartment in Manhattan, which they only left once per year, if that. Some years they didn't leave at all.
Yeah.
And there was like 7 or 8 of them living together. It might have been as high as 12, but
it was smaller than, it was maybe in the like 7 range.
They ended up becoming like, they did a video documentary on them. And if you watch the documentary cognitively and emotionally, they are much more mature than most random teenagers.
Did he honestly say to her, did he honestly mansplain to his own wife, where he's like, that reminds me of a thing that you told me. And then he told her the facts of it as if he's telling her, even though she's the one who told him. And she had the original information and he's kind of just half remembering. And we just saw mansplaining live. That's awesome.
You would meet.
And she's down with it. She's happy about it. Look at that. That's love right there. That's love. My husband's a misogynistic jerk. I'm going to sleep with him later tonight. that's love right there. And he doesn't.
Yes, you would expect them to be completely out of whack and
he thinks he's making a point. She already knew. She told you.
Terribly regulated and everything, but in the end, living with those limitations, living in such close quarters with other people, having to make that work, forced them to be reasonable and patient and strong.
I don't think that's my takeaway from it. My takeaway from it is that the cognitive stabilization and benefits of having lots of siblings is so astronomically high, it can outweigh being locked in a room your entire life, basically. You can be raised like a feral child, basically, and if you have lots of siblings, you will be better off than your, single kid who's going to tennis camp and going to the shooting range with her dad and who the parents spend tons of time on. That is how much it matters in terms of cognitive stability to have a huge number of siblings.
Well, I think siblings are very grounding because they constantly remind you that the world isn't about you, that everything's not just about you and your needs, that you are not entitled to anything, and that you can gain a lot of benefit from caring for other people and feel genuine reward and pleasure by helping someone else before you help yourself. And there's just so many good things that come from it. And as someone who had bad dreams as an only child, in which my parents told me I was going to have a little sibling, who just thought it was the worst thing ever to have siblings, it's so weird for me to now acknowledge this. I feel a little uncomfortable saying it.
Yeah. All right. So we keep going here.
Yeah.
Nobody knows I'm doing this. I've got the weapons by lies and manipulation and my father's stupidity. I planned on shooting myself a while ago, but thought maybe it's better for evolution rather than just one stupid, boring suicide, which hopefully I'll reach that point. I planned this myself.
So sad and pathetic.
And nobody else. I act alone. There would have been no way to change what happened. You can't and never will know. You never cared too much to know anything about me. I'm glad you don't know. So
who the heck is she even talking to?
Clearly here, this is like, I'm better than my caretaker. And teens go through this phase where they think their parents are idiots.
No, these are all very natural feelings. And again, I think the problem is that it's a natural and important thing as well, I think, as a teenager and as someone becoming an adult, in the process of becoming an adult, to realize that, you don't matter. No one cares what you think. No one cares how you feel. You really don't matter. I think an issue that I see with modern parenting is that you're being gaslit as a teen and told that your feelings do matter and people do care what you think.
Absolutely. Yes.
And her parents are like,
I had an uncle who told my dad to keep me out of the self-esteem program because he was like, no, this is a terrible program. This is going to teach kids all the wrong values and all the wrong lessons that have nothing to do with actual reality. And then when you get to the real world, it's just going to be like, oh, oops.
Oh, no, you're so special. We care what you think. You mean so much to us. But she knows it's not true. And now here she's dealing with it in this really obviously toxic and tragic way.
Yes. And I know here, this is the interesting thing. When you look at like why she's mad at her parents and stuff like that, everyone's like, oh, you guys are so horrible to your kids. Like you bop them, et cetera. Like, how could you do that? I haven't seen anything like that. Kids don't whine about stuff like that in their letters like this or manifestos like this. It's like, my parents got divorced and remarried multiple times. My parents didn't take the time to understand me. My parents were stupid and weak. That's the general complaints you see about parents. In fact, I was disgusted at how weak my parents are, specifically my father was, to be the most common complaint in the incel world.
Really? Well, I think most people, if they're not I guess, okay, yes, being a teen, you hit this point where you discover that your mother and dad are not God, that they're not flawless, they do not know everything. Because I think there's this period between, we'll say, I don't know, we haven't hit it with our kids yet. Maybe from 6 to 10, where kids seem to think very highly of their parents, and then it hits them. Oh my gosh, these people are human, and it's this huge upset, and that's normal. That's very normal.
It is normal, but what I was noting here is that if you are afraid of failing your kids somewhere on the spectrum, if you read a lot of the writing that young people are putting out there, which I have because I spend time on like 4chan and Crystal Cafe and all this stuff, the complaint that young people have about their parents, which I'm trying to hit home, is not the complaints that previous generations had.
Oh, that they were too strict with me. They were too.
How does he have time to do all this research? That's my question.
It's not they were too strict with me. It's not that they were never around.
And still make a great living.
Either,
That's a very
I've
nice
seen
house.
this mirror complaint a lot, and she seems to argue this complaint as well. It's that my mom settled for a weak man. Like she should have been more. What's the word here?
Hypergamous.
Yeah, she should have been more hypergamous. Basically,
this is a complaint people have. Why is it my mom? What?
They blame the weakness of their father for their own weakness. They're like, I am either weak or ugly or not motivated or not creative because.
See, I had a very strong father, a very prominent dad who was very successful in almost everything that he did. So maybe that helped me out in the long run. Who knows? See where I end up in 20 years or 40.
Because I got bad genes from my dad.
That is weird. That's a meme? Like that's a thing?
It's like a hardcore, it's a hardcore meme, especially in incel circles.
Ooh.
And it makes sense because when you break out of the urban monoculture, the first thing that people realize and that floods their mind, if you have any like degree of breaking out, and young people are going to break out always. So what the urban monoculture has been pushing with them is nihilism, but then, human genes exist and I am a large part, a reflection of my genes. Mm-hmm. So if I'm a young kid and I hate myself, it must be because I have bad genes. And then there's this sort of side assumption, which is, and I don't know why the moms always get a pass, but they generally seem to get a pass in these. Like her mom.
That's me.
I think it's because
teen girls really hate their moms.
It's not that she liked her mom, but I think it's that she learned from incel forums how to speak about her dad and the way to speak about her dad that earned her respect.
They just have more to say about men. Yeah.
Well, I think it's more disgusting to be weak as a male.
Okay.
If a female is weak in our society, we don't treat that as like this huge failure. Whereas if a male doesn't stand his ground or show discipline and order for his kids or show a vision and a desire to achieve that for his own life, it's very easy for kids to grow up denigrating him. And you'll see this a lot.
Interesting point. I don't know if that's true, but it's an interesting thought, interesting point there.
So I just think that people are hugely optimizing for things kids don't care about. Kids don't care how frequently you're around. That was
I don't know if it's true, but
2 generations ago. Kids don't care that you're too strict or you're shoving your value system on them. What kids do care about in this generation is you being pathetic. So be careful about that. Okay, so next. I've always been a quiet kid, I say. Or at least that's what everyone else around me has said, and never really had the brains for most things because I wasn't smart enough for people around me, even though I'm good at science and some stuff. Nobody really looked at me in a good way in elementary or middle school, nor even high school right now. Doesn't matter much because I like being alone. Very sour grapesy, right? Like I want attention, but I also don't want to deal with people. Sometimes I just hate being picked on, but yet I mourn for friends. But sooner than later, they'll leave. My therapist sucks. He's just some weak, fat guy who doesn't deserve everything he has now. Nobody deserves anything good. So a lot of this is based.
Those are so scary. I don't know what to say.
It's very teen girl. Like that's why I believe this. Like I read this and I was like, this is so.
No, this checks out. I don't know what the other Femcell manifesto, the fake one, read like, but this is not questionable. Yeah. I mean, if it didn't seem like something written by a teen girl, I would have just assumed that it was a teen girl using AI. But I don't think anyone has so little dignity that they would use AI to write their.
Oh no, it has so many mistakes in it. I mean, the grammatical mistakes I'm making here are not me misreading it. Like it's really poorly structured. Like it's clear that this is not a fully educated human being. And a lot of people said, actually, this is pretty normal grasp of English of 15-year-olds these days, just because the education system is so bad.
Yeah.
And the other reason I believe this one is because it doesn't seem to have an agenda. It's not.
And again, this could all be bullshit. They could be wrong on the assumption, but it's still interesting to hear their analysis of this.
Her as a specific type of person, and there's an awful lot of complaint about why she hates her parents for silly reasons.
Yeah, it's just female. Again, like I
was. Hold on. What I think is interesting is the repeated, like not just her dad, but like other male authority figures in her life.
That is
She's
interesting.
Disgusted by their weakness.
Yeah.
She's disgusted by the weakness of society, which she sees as filthy.
I think that's a product for sure of what she's been exposed to. That we have this equation of female angst, which is the volume is turned way
Do you
up.
think the boyfriend could have helped her write it? And do you think the boyfriend should be held liable if he knew about it beforehand? I know right now they're saying that he got the letter afterwards, but he still put it out there. And he's still trying, I guess, in somewhat to defend her or to at least express what her actual ideology was. So, although apparently he was a long distance boyfriend and they've never actually met. I heard that. I don't know if that's true, but that's also another factor there.
up by being an only child or an almost only child.
How long they were together.
Hands-on parents in a stifling, smothering society. And then she's exposed to this series of memes that's very tough on men. And rather than turn her hate inward, like a lot of teenage girls do, and just do the normal thing, start cutting, develop an eating disorder, go trans, she decides to then become a school shooter. So she is quite indeed not like other girls in that way.
Well, I mean, think about the way that she's approaching this, which I find really fascinating, is that if you look at the femcels, they look at men.
And that's not an endorsement of any of those things. All those things are bad. Everything she listed, bad ideas. Don't do them.
There is a patriarchal structure that is stomping on us. There is like, it's this cabal of men. They see men as like this unifying force that like
they work together. They check each other.
Represents a new wave of disgust and anger with men, which is to say, why are men so weak? Why as growing up?
To be fair, I've heard this from some adults. I've heard adults, people in their 30s say this. Oh, females say this when you get them to talk honestly about how they think about men. So, yeah, this is an actual problem.
Are the men I see so disgustingly desiring affirmation, desiring of weak and pathetic things? Where are the strong men, the men that I want around me, the men that I want in society, which is such a different complaint than you would get from a typical femcel, right? You know, it's almost like a true femcel in that she's like outright admitting it. Like, what I mean by this is it's not that I can't get anyone to sleep with me, it's that no men are worthy of existing in this society. Although again, she did have a boyfriend, so. To continue, my so-called family never included me because I was too weird for them. Again, this whole like I'm different thing. My father never treated me with respect. My father was always making me stand out in the worst possible way.
Yeah, I think the incel femcel labeling goes a little too far and includes people that really shouldn't be in those groups.
Yet bring up how I fail at school or can't get out of bed simply because I don't want to leave home. He makes me look like a freak.
I think
to
it's
his
become shorthand for weirdo. Like they're just a weirdo in some way. And I think that's an improper usage of the word.
Family and friends. He says so much, but look on his bad side. So here you see, this is something that young girls, especially in your diary, even saw this. You were like, why am I freaking out that like my parents are cheering for me at a sports game? Like, they're trying to be nice. You had the ability to like have some self-reflection on like, why do I care that my parents are trying to help me out?
I'm crazy. That's what's happening.
And I'd also point out here that what kids are afraid of is their parents in impotent ways trying to get them to do things. It's not their parents in effective ways trying to get them to do things. And I think it's the of the way her father interacted with her, as well as the social shaming and connection of himself to her in these, big in-person environments that created this kind of language. One of the ways I think that will really help avoid this with our daughters and boys, for that extent, is I really want to include them in the podcast. I really want to include them in our social media in the same way that I talk with you. I'd love to have days where it's one of them or something like that, or two of them instead of us, makes this more of a family affair.
I wouldn't do that. I think it's a bad idea.
And I think that if you have somebody regularly publicly broadcasting the way that they're thinking about things and people notice red flags, like the type of red flags that she was clearly exhibiting, they can help constructively steer them back on.
Or if you're going to do that, do like what, it's not Wes, but Warren Smith does, and have them be off camera talking to you. So it's just their voice and it's not them on camera. I wouldn't let them be on camera at all. I just think that's a bad idea because YouTube and everything warps your reality. And whatever the future is going to be, like, let's say their kids are like 10 years away from being old enough to be on camera. Just, that's going to be a different reality anyway. So I wouldn't do it. I would wait.
To a good path. And these sorts of deep conversations where she got to signal what she thought is something that is clear that she just wasn't having with important people in her life.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was all going online or inward, which was very toxic for her.
And people can be like, well, won't your kids find some outlet like that? Unlikely, because if your parents, and this is the way that's actually happened to me now because we have such a big audience, I like stopped responding to Facebook or comments or anything like that because I'm like, I know this person has built rage in me and I want to explain to them why they're so stupid, but why am I wasting time responding to this person when at any given time, day or night, there's over 100 people watching me? Like, I should be focused on the messages that I'm putting out to a wider platform, not this one individual on Facebook who pissed me off.
Yeah, maybe. And there's also that element that I think a lot of everyone wants to be heard in some way. And for many people, feeling like they're heard by some audience online may be some way to make them feel better, I suppose. So like she might have felt sufficiently heard if she felt she had an audience that engaged with her ideas, however small it may be. I don't know. I'm not sure.
No, it's really hard. No, it's clear. She mentions that a few times. If she had a wider audience, she wouldn't have done this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But because a lot of the social capital of today's youth is based on how many people are watching you or looking at you online. I think she felt like, especially as AI begins to grow, like, am I ever going to have that? Am I ever going to have people who care what I say or think or am doing?
That's interesting.
All right, so next. I was the wrong child of the family. My parents admit they didn't want me nor ever did, even if I'm grown. I'm always the one who sat around in the other room because they didn't want to interact with me at any point in time. Then I stayed in my room all day during the day and night and after and before school as well. Again, you can see incredibly bright. And this is why
Oh, did she have brothers and sisters or not?
I don't think that this is a fake manifesto.
I would say articulate. The word you're looking for is articulate. She could be very bright and just not have been instructed well in writing.
Okay, but I think if she was, she would have at least put it through an AI to fix the grammar. I mean, it's the last thing that's going out there.
I think a lot of people don't show their kids these resources. We've met plenty of kids of really, really smart, articulate people who have not even really told their kids about AI, and they live in sheltered enough worlds where they're not using those tools to cheat on everything yet. I think that AI adoption is pretty lumpy, even among young people.
That makes sense. Yeah, maybe she just didn't engage with it. And I also want to note on this last one, that
5
sounds
more
pretty
minutes,
interesting,
guys.
is she talks about her parents not wanting her. And this brings me to the part of pronatalism that I get so disgusted with, which is the pronatalists. They're like, it is pronatalist to ban condoms and to ban pornography.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
like, you want someone to get someone pregnant because like they couldn't like get off? Like, are you really that like insane of a person? Like, no, we don't want the people to exist who only exist because their parents lacked self-control.
Yeah, not cool.
Not cool. Insane, actually. I am not hate. I am simply pointing this out. You and the system will always
I am
suck.
not hate.
Therefore, we need a revolution. Nobody understands that, though. Nor do people understand the fact that they probably sat next to me in
Even
class
though
and
you
never
did
thought
one of the worst hateful acts you could even possibly do.
a single word about me, nor ever really thought to. I don't really care, though, to be honest. Nobody really has. But such teen angst here, first of all. Like, she wants people to think about her and to notice her, but she also wants to not focus on people. We talk about what it is to go through puberty as a young girl, and it's a desire to be treasured. And that's not what she's feeling in society, and it was not something she was able to generate.
Well, it's horrible because it's a desire to be treasured, often accompanied by, not always, but often accompanied by a disgust with oneself, because you're going through puberty and it doesn't always look that great, you know? It didn't look great for
With her, it was not bad.
Oh, okay. Lucky her. Must be nice.
The interesting thing is that she seemed almost pathologically against like a makeup, trying to doll herself up in any extent, and she still looks pretty fine.
Oh, wow.
You know, so I that was not the issue with her.
You say this knowing you can admit that this was the issue with me, right? You didn't think I looked okay, right?
I don't know. I think you guys are probably around the same attractiveness level.
Oh no, then she probably felt super ugly because I looked freaking horrible. Okay, yeah. Then if you thought I looked okay as an adolescent, then we have words.
Oh, as an adolescent, I'm talking today. As an adolescent, yeah, you probably would have been by average person considered less attractive than her.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. So she was, yeah. Okay. I just wanted to calibrate there.
No, but again,
not everyone goes through your ugly duckling phases. Not saying I became a swan, but I'm not at the nadir of my attractiveness.
Hold on. What I'm saying here is this is actually okay. So it is weird to have to try to judge the attractiveness of a 15-year-old girl because she's a kid, right?
Well, especially at school, and it's also sad that, well, okay, maybe it's not, because I was going to say, like, I don't remember other people rating the attractiveness of Columbine shooters, but I think they
just Google her.
This is so bad. Oh yeah, no, she's attractive. She looks very sad, but she's an attractive. No, definitely, she looks way better than I did as a teen. Poor thing. I mean, I feel
okay.
Really,
So you
really
see what I
good
mean? I'm like top 10% of women, right? Her age.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's weird to say, sorry, I will say it is weird to have to say this about a 15-year-old, but it's actually important because when you're talking about teenage girls, a huge part of angst or hatred with the world can come from perceptions of their own attractiveness vis-a-vis other individuals.
Yeah.
And so it's important to be able to say, no, she was not unattractive. If anything, she was only attractive into the spectrum. For somebody who never did herself up.
I always think it's really funny when really ugly people think they're super attractive. That to me is hilarious.
Let's keep, very common issue, body dysmorphia in teenage girls. I mean, it's
she doesn't complain ever about being unattractive.
She doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't. So that clearly wasn't the issue here. The issue here was, well, maybe, I mean, maybe she would have been better off if she was body dysmorphic, because then her hatred would have turned inward. And like I said, she would have either gone trans or anorexic.
I actually think that might be part of what led her to this form of radicalization.
Yeah, she wasn't hating herself enough. She needed to hate herself more.
She didn't have an obvious excuse for all of the emotion she was feeling. She didn't have.
There are many problems with their philosophies and views and outlooks on the world. Just FYI.
She wasn't ugly enough.
But still entertaining.
Oh, I'm feeling this because I'm trans, or oh, I'm feeling this because I'm, X discriminated group. She was a white straight girl, right? Like above average attractiveness. So there was no outlet other than just it's just society that's broken. When you get this blackpilled. And I also think that her goal for trying to fix society is interesting because she didn't feel like she had agency to do that, which is a huge thing we focus on with our kids in Future Day.
Was she blackpilled? Interesting assumption.
Yeah.
Yes, the state is broken, but you have the agency to fix it.
Yeah, that's messed up. Yeah, but I think that was all just a just so story there.
But she should have fixed herself.
I'm, taking myself out, and she just hurt, and she was angry, and it was displaced aggression against herself and others that
Thomas, I believe it.
she turned to.
Yeah, and the final continue. So the final line here I clip is, the wolf hunts its prey and continues life with no other bruises or scars. There is no predator and prey anymore. It is all filth walking. There's nothing more with filth. It simply cannot die or make hunts real if only they want is value. Finally, one learns that boredom is a disease of civilization. That's what she concluded her manifesto with.
You know, it's funny. If you actually study wolves, they're actually very, very bruisable. They're very emotional. My uncle had a pet half wolf, half husky, and that was the most loyal animal I've ever met. I still think of him as a friend, not even as a dog. Like, it was such an amazing animal, and so smart. And we would play together. He could basically bite my whole arm without even leaving a teeth mark. So we'd wrestle, and I wouldn't even have a scratch from him. I have cats, and as you can see, the cats are not able to like control the depth of their claws or any of that kind of stuff. Or one of my cats likes to bite my skin like this and hold me, and then like start pushing my belly. So she'll start making muffins or whatever people call them, but she'll hold me so I don't leave, because if I try to get up, she'll be like, no, don't go. And she can't always do it right. So I have to tell her, I have to like, hey, that's too hard. That's okay. I have to teach her all of that. With the wolf dog, with the wolf, the half wolf, half husky, he could put the whole arm, he could get your throat, he could do everything, and he wouldn't even leave a mark. Like, seriously, like there wouldn't even be a sign of like pressure point. Like, they're really intelligent, and they're really, really human is the wrong word, but I can only think of, like, there's a lot of humanity in them. There's a lot of life, a lot of personality in wolves, and even compared to other dogs, because dogs have personalities, but a wolf, something that's half wolf, has a lot more personality, has a lot more free thought. So, yeah, she has a really incomplete understanding of reality based on what she thinks things represent.
So it's ennui again.
Yeah, and if you look at her social media posts, they're very like, pay attention to me sort of stuff leading up to this. They were things like,
and I warned my wife about ennui here in the United States, that things are so easy here, and you can do well with just a little bit of work and a hard dedication. Just a little bit of stick-to-itness, and you're going to do well. And that means that once all the dangers are out of the way, you just get really, really bored. And that can lead to a lot of mental problems if you don't have ways to fill in the time. And she completely denied that. In our 6th year of marriage, she was experiencing that, and she booked it back to China at the end of that year. And, we've been separated for a year now. And so, I mean, like, the ennui is a real problem here in the U.S. and in other countries that are this stable. I'm guessing Canada. I think Canada's the only country that's this stable, maybe Australia.
The quiet ones always
Germany's
strike the
doing
loudest.
well, right?
And I'm not broken. I'm what you made me. They're almost like live, laugh, love of teenage angst.
I plan to be a school shooter. She just had that Pinterest board. We should not be making light of this. Is bad. They're not. This is
no. It is. No, it should be. This is the way that you prevent this. Is you make light of it in a way where people who have these feelings realize that they are so basic they should be scoffed at and not to air them. Because this is not what she expected. She expected to be thought of as weird or different or out there, because that's what she wanted to be thought of, as unique, not basic.
Yeah.
That's the biggest fear of every teenage girl, is that they'll be thought of as ordinary.
She's just like everybody else.
Oh,
I'll put the American Beauty in there.
I don't think there's anything worse than being ordinary.
You haven't even seen.
So
You're not even old enough to know.
The countdown has begun. They'll know what I mean when the time comes.
Well, I do wonder what if the boyfriend has access to this Google Doc. Did he not?
No, this is not Google Doc stuff. This is stuff she was posting publicly leading up to this.
No. But I'm referring to the Google Doc manifesto that he shared.
I wouldn't have thought that this definitely meant a school shooting was coming.
I mean, you weren't 90% sure.
Genuinely, my thoughts if I was a boyfriend is she's got to spell check this before she does the school shooting. Like, I'm going to grammar check this before. I'll get scared when she grammar checks her manifesto.
Oh,
but an ungrammar checked manifesto, I'm like, she's probably not. No one's going to leave that public.
You've been seriously depressed before. You just kind of things fall through the cracks.
Here.
Okay, I think we're done. Let's go to the music. Let's go to the big screen, then we go to the music. So we did some apologetics this week. I will do a super secret stream on Saturday. I will not be streaming tomorrow. I have stuff going on. And like I said, in January, I'm going to disappear for a week. And I might put one planned video or two planned videos while I'm away from YouTube. Yeah. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you all for watching. Let me give the shout outs. Thomas, thank you for coming by. Patrick, it's good to have you in the audience as regular. B.S. Lewis, you're always welcome. Anyone else? Yeah, that's it. Have a great night. Hopefully we get to 153, maybe 200 views by tomorrow, by the morning. I'll talk to you all later. Have a great night. Here comes the music.
Here are some other social
And this world ain't right, won't accept it. Negative energy, I expect it. Once it's in your mind, it's infectious. So fight for your life and reject it. You better give me space, I'm protective. My adrenaline spikes when I'm threatened. And if you stay in my way, I'm aggressive. Cause when there's no